Hi there. This is my own personal attempt at a Howard Talk. To begin, since this is going to be the first of what I hope will be many online lessons, so to speak, I used to be a member of a faculty in a college of education, and I taught courses on teacher education for quite some time. Whenever I taught, my students always enjoyed the things I said because I often related them to myself. And I found myself becoming more comfortable with the idea that I was a mentor and an inspiration for my students because they all told me that. For a long time, since I retired, I wondered what I was going to do with these skills that I still had. And so I have decided to try to use some of those same classroom skills online by making videos about topics that are of importance to not only teachers in training, but classroom teachers. So, having said that, one of the courses I taught every year for quite a few years was literacy in the primary and junior grades. How to enhance literacy in the primary and junior grades, which became how to teach language arts and what language arts had to do with literacy. When you open up the door to talking about literacy, the very first thing we have to put on the table is that the word literacy implies different things in different contexts. At one time, when we talked about literacy as teachers, for a long time, we referred to the ability to be able to read and write and speak. To be literate in the 20th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, meant to be able to read only. To be literate by the end of the 20th century, in most of the parts of the world, meant to be able to read and write proficiently. That was the goal of education. In the 21st century, increasingly, literacy means something very different depending on what part of the world you come from, you live in. In the vast majority of the world, there is an increasing number of people who are literate in the old sense, meaning they could read and write. But there are still almost 20% of the world's population that are not literate. So that's the lowest level of what we mean by literacy. However, in the developed world, literacy is increasingly coming to mean being able to do something with that ability. Being able to understand what it is that you are reading and apply it. To help you understand what I meant, when I was an early young teenager, I was part of a class that was a pilot in using what was called the SRA Reading Lab. We took cards from a box, and we had to read the portion, and we had to answer questions about the portion, and we had to answer questions about the words and use the words in sentences and so on. That was learning how to read, and that was language arts. I'm sure there are many older teachers that can remember having reading groups depending upon the ability to be able to comprehend what was read. There's a huge difference, though, between comprehending what we read and making something of that comprehension, using that comprehension in some way. The goal increasingly in especially the North American countries, more so Canada and the United States than Mexico, but increasingly in the developed world, is to use what we read and apply it. In other words, to think about what we read and to learn from what we read, not just to comprehend, but to learn from that. What do we read? Learn about the world around us or learn about ourselves? Our goal increasingly in the developed world is to make reading a lifetime passion. I used to tell my students, those who read succeed. And it's not just because they can comprehend. We now understand that those who read all the time are reading and applying what they read. So education becomes increasingly reaching out to the individual learner, helping the individual learner find books that they enjoy reading, and helping that individual learner apply what they learn and understand from what they've read to problems, whatever they might be. So applying reading is to visualize what's happening and to be able to categorize it. So I pick up a newspaper and I read an article about immigration along the southern border of the United States. And if I'm becoming increasingly literate, I can relate that to immigration in Europe. And then I can relate a headline on the news about a boat sinking of immigrants who have left Libya and are sailing across to Europe because they are seeking asylum. And I can then also put that together with facts about the problem with climate change and immigration. That's what it means to be truly literate. But not everybody teaches to that. And the goal of my lessons, if you will, the goal of what I'm about to try to do is to help you understand how you can move from simply reading and understanding to reading and understanding and applying, so that over time the students become increasingly literate. The route to successful literacy is a constant attempt to read and apply that reading. There are a lot of different elements that go into that, but over time we'll look at all the different ways in which we can help students apply their learning, and not just to nonfiction. It's important from the earliest years in school to help children learn about themselves and the world around them from the books we read to them. When we just read because we think it's important to read to kids, we're only accomplishing one thing. We're entertaining. We're calming down maybe, but we're not helping children learn about themselves. I just read a book and made a video about Me I Am. It was called Me I Am by Richard Perlutsky. And in that book, the only thing that goes on in that book is a series of children talking about how special they are, how special their thoughts are, how special their thinking is, how special the clothes are that they wear, and so on. Taking that book and then talking to students about diversity and accepting people that are different from you and so forth, that's as important as understanding when you read a book about dogs or snowstorms or whatever. So as we go forward, we will look at how we expand this concept of literacy. Thank you.